What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and another Outriders video. This video is a continuation of my series on the Pax Trees for the new Worldslayer expansion for Outriders. So a couple of days ago I released a video for Devastator. Today we're going to be looking at Trickster, but just some general housekeeping or some ground rules here, of course, is that what we know is that the Pax tree or the Pax leveling system is going to give us a maximum amount of 5 Pax points per class, per character, however you want to look at it, and these points are obtained by finishing the campaign, and basically you'll get 1 point at different parts of the campaign until eventually you finish the Worldslayer campaign and you get all 5 of your points. So looking at the way how we can then use this, we essentially can put these 5 points into either one of the top or the bottom tree. We could chop them up, of course, if we wanted to, but the bottom line is you kind of want to get to those capstones in each one's lines, because they are really powerful. Now, as said, today we're going to be looking at the Trickster, and these Pax trees, these Pax builds, they have different names to them. So the Spectre is the upper tree, and the Exploiter is the bottom tree. And as we saw with the Devastator review, when I looked at that, it seemed that a trend would be that the top tree would be for firepower builds and the bottom tree would be for anomaly builds. And funnily enough, with the Trickster, immediately after reviewing this, I realized that the Trickster kind of breaks the mold here, because the Trickster one, or the Trickster trees rather, allow you to actually use either of them. So whereas the top tree might seem that it's a firepower build, it can just as well be suited most likely for either a hybrid or an anomaly build. But as we go through each one of the steps, as we go through each one of the points, then I think that'll start making a little bit more sense. So for now, I think what we'll do is we'll just switch to the same kind of spreadsheet view that I was using before when in the Devastator review, and we can just basically see all of these and essentially follow along with me. So when we look at the Spectre tree, which is the top tree, and again, like I said, this can be thought of as the firepower tree. Our first one here is called Damaged, and this says that damaging enemies with damage skills. Now, of course, your damage skills are Temporal Blade, Twisted Rounds, and Cyclone Slice. If you damage enemies with any one of these skills, your damage is increased by 15% for 5 seconds. So just a straightforward, damage increase buff there. And however, this says that this skill increases your damage by 15%. So again, here it doesn't necessarily specify that this damage needs to be coming from an anomaly source or it needs to be coming from a weapon. This just basically increases your damage across the board. Then our first place where we have to choose between either the upper or the bottom point is either choosing adaptation or reactive shielding. Adaptation, what it gives us is activating skills grants you 15% anomaly power or firepower for 5 seconds, depending on which of them is higher. Now, obviously, as we go through these trees and as we go through these builds, I somehow tie them back to some builds that I've of course made for Trickster. And primarily the 2 builds that I have for Trickster is I have a Hunter Prey, Twisted Rounds, firepower kind of build for Trickster that also uses Time Rift. And then I have an anomaly version of Trickster that essentially leans incredibly heavily into I'm using Time Rift on that, I'm using Hunter Prey on that, and I'm actually using Venator's Knife on that as well. I've even dabbled with swapping Venator's Knife out for Slow Trap to essentially just really dive deep into Deception side. But that's basically the 2 builds. So keeping that in mind and looking at this and looking at adaptation, we can see here that activating skills grants you 15% anomaly power or firepower, depending on which is higher. So if your armor is actually stacking anomaly, and so your anomaly is the higher one, then you can very much use this build, or rather this tree or this Pax line, as a anomaly build and not necessarily a firepower. And that's what I meant with the whole hybrid thing. Now, if we look just below that, we have reactive shielding as our second option. So that's over here. Now, activating skills increases your damage mitigation by 5% for 6 seconds. Now, this can stack up to 3 times. So in other words, giving you 15% in total. Now, this is then obviously your more defensive option. And so you can kind of lean into more damage or more defense. That's your basic choice here. Then when we get over to the third one, which again we're forced to take, so we're of course forced to take 1 and forced to take 3, we get choices at 2. When we get to our third here, it's and I say our third choice is not really a choice, is phasing. Activating skills grants you 15% shield and 10% shield to allies. Now, if this just said activating skills grants you 15% shield, it would have still been okay. Tricksters can be kind of, if you're caught out in the open and you don't have any way to hunt the prey away or to rapidly gain shield, or you're busy reloading your weapon or something like that, you can have a potential issue where you can get downed. So any way for you to actually stack shield and another way for you to mitigate damage is great. I mean, it wouldn't have been fantastic, but I really like the fact that activating skill grants you 15% shield and 10% shield to your allies. That's fantastic. I like the addition of the fact that you can actually lend some shield to allies as well. And it's just something that's kind of like becoming a trend with these Pax trees, and that we'll see when we review some of the other characters, as there seems to be a lot of focus on synergizing with other players and on you perhaps providing shield for other players and they provide ammo for you, and another guy provides health for you. So I really do like that, and they are leaning heavily into the whole co-op play of the game, which is such, you know, it's a part of the game that has gone through its kind of like evolution of where people kind of hated doing co-op because of terrible connection speeds and because they were getting kicked, and you know, because it would make you never be able to get gold because guys would go too slow. And now the timers is not a thing anymore. Co-op is at an all-time high, and things like this where you can actually influence your partners and actually benefit them as well is huge. I really love it. So then when we get to now the first of our three choices for chasing, option 4 and option 5. So we'll do top first, then middle, and then bottom. So of course at the top we have Great Expanse. Now this extends the distance considered as close range by 2 meters. So this is kind of underwhelming for me, to be honest. I think the 2 meters is not really phenomenal at all. It's not to say that I want it to be 4 meters and then suddenly I think this is the shit. I just think that this is for this being a Pax tree, and then literally talking about the point that we had just before with phasing being so shit hot. This is just super underwhelming. And then when we get to Quantum Entanglement, which is the capstone or the cap of that particular tree, that particular path, it then says all enemies in close range share 10% of your weapon damage. So this build that I was talking about before, which was like a hunter prey shotgun kind of fire-powered trickster, would probably consider trying this out, because yes, you get this additional thing to close range, and of course your damage is increased to close range targets with that particular build. But then you also get the fact that if you jump into a group of enemies, there's like 6 or 7 of them, and you are focusing, let's say for example, on the boss that's standing in the middle of them, and you're loading all of your shotgun shells into their back, that is actually going to share damage among all the little ones that are standing around, which is kind of like a good thing. But overall, this isn't really blowing my hair back just yet. Then when we get to the middle option, we have Harrowing, which increases your resistance piercing by 10%. Each enemy in close range increases the bonus by 2% up to an additional 10%. So this can go up to 20% in other words. Now of course there are ways for you to heavily lean into additional resistance piercing, and you can potentially influence more anomaly power out of that with the correct mods. So far this is kind of like okay, and it is certainly in my mind already better than Great Expanse. But then when we look at the final one, the capstone, Spectral Spike, this says damaging skills have a 100% chance to deal additional damage equal to 15% of your anomaly power. Consecutive triggers on the same enemy stacks, dealing more damage up to 750%. This is insane to me, because I'm thinking about a build where you essentially you use Temporal Blade with the double Temporal Blade so that you get that additional damage on the second one with the correct mods that you have on there. Then you use something like Hunter Prey to further on stack up additional damage, and maybe you also throw in a timer if they to get additional vulnerable onto the enemy or something like that. Now that's generally your wombo combo for like a boss or a champion or an elite or something running around. Now this is basically making it so that you are like a killing machine on one specific enemy. So if you have a boss or something like that and you do exactly that combo that I was just talking about, now as you go through those steps, you are actually causing your anomaly power to ramp up. And this of course gives you has a 100% chance to deal additional damage equal to 15% of your anomaly. So let's say for instance you stack your anomaly up to you know, I don't know, 750 or something like that, which is kind of like low, but that's what you can do. Just as an example, and this deals an additional 75k, which is not a lot, but then the point is consecutive triggers on the same enemy stacks, dealing more damage up to 750%. Now that's huge. So far I gotta say this is looking super tasty and a lot better for me than Quantum Entanglement. Now the last one gives us superposition and special tactics, or special tactics if you don't pronounce like an idiot. Superposition says that it increases your damage mitigation against elites by 20% during and 3 seconds after using a movement skill. Now movements, of course, Hunt the Prey and Borrowed Time, which is like the skill that I've literally almost never used. And then our special tactics capstone says damaging elites increases your damage against elites by 4% for 3 seconds. Effect can occur once per second and stacks up to 20 times. So this is obviously again here, if you had have taken reactive shielding, you were focusing on damage mitigation. Superposition again focuses on damage mitigation, and then again special tactics allows you to damage elites and essentially ramp up additional damage to those elites, and it actually stack very high, like you know, up to 20 times, which means if you're fighting multiple elites or like a big boss, and essentially the fight takes a while, that you can actually get to the point where you have 20 stacks. However, I still struggle to think how this would be as good as what we can see from Spectral Spike. So at the moment right now, Spectral Spike really has me hot under the collar. I really do like the sound of that. I think it sounds, you know, fucking bestial. So all in all, even though this is considered the firepower tree, I am absolutely thinking of ways of actually building this tree to benefit Anomaly, and that's why I said there's a hybrid situation going on here. So then if we move on down and we get down to the Exploiter, which by the way, I really love that name. And then this is supposed to be the anomaly tree, right? So the first one we have is just called Triggerman, and this says that your damage is increased by 10% for each skill on cooldown. Now generally speaking, again, if you're building an anomaly Trickster, or at least when I build an anomaly Trickster, I make sure to include as much as possible cooldown reduction, because you want to have really fast Hunt the Preys, and to get in and out of trouble, and if, let's say for instance, you're using Temporal Blade, you want those off cooldown as soon as possible. If you're using Time Rift to do massive AoE damage, you want that available as much as possible. So this basically means that you're gonna get additional 10% damage for each skill on cooldown. That means that in the odd chance that all 3 of your skills are on cooldown, you're gonna see 30% of additional damage. But generally speaking, because you stack the cooldown so low, I think that the window for you to capitalize on 30% of this buff is actually gonna be fairly small. I think usually you can probably hope to have 20 and capitalize on that, but most of the time probably capitalize on 10%. So all in all, not like fantastic, but it's okay. We gotta take that to proceed down the tree. So then that gets us to the second options, and that's Cheap Shot and Lies, and well, just Lies Deception. So Cheap Shot says that your class melee skill lowers damaged enemies' armor and resistance by 30% for 4 seconds. Now that's a pretty hectic debuff that you can put on enemies with your class melee. So it's not 10%, it's not 15, it's 30%, and it's actually to armor and resistance. Now that's huge. Not a massive window, 4 seconds is not a super long time, but absolutely if you're leaning into this, it can be a great thing for you to sort of, you know, sync up with enemies, and right before they dump all their heavy damage onto a boss or onto a group of elites or something like that, you can just run in and, or, you know, you can Hunt the Prey in and do like an AoE melee or something like that. Then Lies Deception says that activating deception skills grants you 25% shield every 1 second for 4 seconds. Now, personally for me, I think Anomaly Trickster is so durable due to the fact of how you can mod something like Time Rift, and the fact that as long as the Time Rift is up, you are essentially unkillable or very close to unkillable. This is just more, you know, sprinkling more crack on it, because this says activating deception. So again, our deception skills of course are Slow Trap, Venator's Knife, and Time Rift, and I've literally made a build that actually had those 3 skills in. I was just going nutty, and I was just going for a completely you know, deception based trickster. And this shit is insane because activating deception skills grants you 25% shield every 1 second for 4 seconds. And if you time this right, because again, we're stacking as much cooldown reduction as we can, and we are making sure that when one skill is being used, so we're getting that shield, then the other skills are sort of like waiting, and as soon as that one's done, then we trigger the other one. So with correct management of cooldowns and kind of watching what you're doing, you can almost have this up the entire time, which is so fucking broken. I really like this skill. It's definitely better for me than cheap shot. I like the fact that you can debuff stuff with cheap shot. It's like debuff on a stick, but this is insane. This makes you, like, you know, virtually unkillable. So for me here, the choice would be that if you are playing, you know, if you're playing so like in a group where you might not be getting focused the whole time, and you're kind of like the space ninja and you're doing your shit and you're darting in and out of combat, then absolutely cheap shot is a great way for you to synergize and provide great utility to your team. You can, again, like I said, be the debuff stick, and guys will be like, okay, I'm about to dump my load on the boss, and you can be like, hold on, and you can hunt to prey the boss and melee him, like I said before. However, if you're playing solo and you want to be fucking nigh unkillable, then lies deception seems like that's the way you want to go. So then when we get to the third portion here, which is the one that we have to take, that says fail safe protocols. Great name. When your health drops below 30%, get 100% shield and 30% damage mitigation for 3 seconds. Fail safe protocols can be triggered every 10 seconds. So the same toughness and durability that you get from lies and deception is just further on. So for some reason, if something's able to drill through all of that shield and all, you know, while you're fucking around and dealing a lot of damage and just messing stuff up, is able to push through damage on you there, then you still have this failsafe protocols that you can dip into, and you can get 100% shield from that and 30% damage mitigation for 3 seconds, and then there's 7 seconds of cooldown, and then it can happen again. That is just really impressive, and I think it's going to make anomaly builds or exploited tricksters like basically impossible to kill, which is super interesting, because if you think about the meta right now and you want to talk about an unkillable character, just generally Devastator jumps to your mind. This kind of like makes tricksters hella tough as well. So then we get to our 4 and 5. So getting up to the capstones, again, we'll do them top, middle, bottom. So we have Rigged Game and Infinity Slinger. So Rigged Game says activating skills increases your critical damage by 10% for 5 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. And then, so let me first get to the capstone and then we come back, right? So then Infinity Slinger says sidearm weapons do not consume ammo during and for 4 seconds after using a movement skill. Now, basically what this means to me is that what you could do here, right, just theoretically, is and this is just off the top of my head, is you can switch to your sidearm, you can hunt the prey behind something, and as soon as you hunt the prey behind it, you don't consume ammo for 4 seconds. And then because you've hunt the prey, you've now activated Rigged Game, and you can continue on activating Rigged Game, and you can get it to stack up to 3 times by, once you hunt the prey behind something, let's say for argument's sake you time rift him, or you slow trap, or whatever, something like that. But then at that point you have all this additional critical damage. Well, you know, let's say you've activated 2 abilities now, so that's 20% additional critical damage, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is not like a fucking shitload, but in any case. But then because you have these sidearms that shoot really fast and that are not running out of ammo, you can literally just point at the thing's head or whatever its crit spot is and just drill for like 4 seconds and deal that damage. Now, we don't know if some busted ass like sidearms are coming with Worldslayer. I don't really like sidearms. I hardly ever switch to them. I switch to them when I want to get Moaning Winds to proc. So we'll have to wait and see here, but this is definitely something that I guess we can keep our eyes on. Like I said, if there's some weird ass crazy sidearm coming in Worldslayer, then of course my whole mind's gonna change here. Or you get like a Apocalypse sidearm with the right 3 mods to drop on it. Who knows, right? So when we get to the middle tree here, we have Power Overwhelming, which feeds into the capstone Perpetuum Trickery. So power overwhelming, dude, my tongue is so like getting knotted up with these words. So power overwhelming says increases your firepower by 40% of your anomaly power when using an assault weapon. So see, again here, the hybrid thing is coming through here. So while this is considered the anomaly tree, here we have mention of firepower increases from which is 40% of your anomaly power when using an assault weapon. Now Perpetuum Trickery says that critical shots increase your anomaly power by 12%, stacking up to 5 times. These stacks are consumed by the next damage skill you use. Now, activating damage skills increases your assault weapon damage by 30% for 7 seconds. Now, of course, the skills that we're talking about here, the damage skills, is if you are using Twisted Rounds, if you are using Temporal Blade, and if you are using Cyclone Slice. Now, generally speaking, if you play Firepower Trickster, and because it incorporates Hunter Prey, and because of the kind of shotguns that we have in the game right now, generally speaking, Firepower Trickster runs shotguns. However, this certainly paints the picture that what they are suggesting is that you might want to check out Tactical Assault Rifle Trickster, for an example. Now, the problem for me inherently with that comes, let's forget about power overwhelming. Let's just look at Perpetuum Trickery. The problem I have with that is critical shots increase your anomaly power by 12%, stacking up to 5 times. The stacks are consumed by the next damage skill you use, right? So the only way for you to capitalize on that additional anomaly power would be to either use a Temporal Blade on someone, which means you have to go in close, or it means that you have to use Twisted Rounds. But the point is, if you activate Twisted Rounds, then I mean, this says critical shots increase your anomaly power. The stacks are consumed by the next damage skill you use. So this could basically mean that you could essentially try to ramp up till you have those 5 stacks, and then only you proc your Twisted Rounds. And then it means that for that window, that damage window that you have there, you essentially have this, you know, fucking bullet hose tactical rifle that just deals a shitload of damage. But that's going to require a lot of setup. And it's going to require you to be able to capitalize on that damage window there, and for guys not to jump in front of you, or, you know, mess with the bosses or anything like that. So again, I think what's becoming at least apparent to me with these Pax trees is that when you pick them, you kind of have to chop and change them depending on whether you're playing solo or whether you're playing in a group, because certainly some of them are much more suited for solo, where like this, for instance, I think is probably suited for solo, where you can control that ramp up, and you can memorize and kind of know when it's time to proc it, and you can time it in a way that you have to shoot the right enemies and all of that. Whereas in multiplayer, it gets a little bit more chaotic. You can't depend on other players to, you know exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to use your abilities and stuff like that, especially if you're playing with randoms. So then probably Perpetuum Trickery and Power Overwhelming is not something that you want to do. Then last but not least, the bottom tree, Goals Beyond Understanding, says damage done to elites tagged with deception skills have a 20%. Let me scroll down just a tad so we can actually see the skills. So damage skills, or damage done to elites tagged with deception skills has a 25% chance to be increased by 200%. Now, your deception skills, of course, are your Slow Trap, your Venator's Knife, and Time Rift. So this says that damage done to elites tagged by this has a 25% chance to be increased by 200. Now, a very good common combo is, of course, to use Time Rift and essentially have Time Rift have that dot effect that ticks off and deals damage to enemies. It's a really powerful combo for anomaly tricksters. It's one of my favorites, and this essentially suggests that damage done to elites tagged by deception, so when you hit them with the Time Rift, then this has a 25% chance to be increased by 200%. Now, I think this probably only increases the initial damage of the Time Rift, and it doesn't actually have a 25% chance to take the dot and increase it by 200%. However, we would certainly have to test this and see. But if we think about something like Venator's Knife, right? So damage done to elites tagged by deception skills have a 25% chance to be increased by 200%. Now, when you throw the Venator's Knife, it bounces from enemy to enemy, and each one of those bounces deal damage. Now, again, it's unclear from this, but my mind tells me that what should be happening is each time that thing bounces, it should be calculating this 25%. Or does it calculate the 25% at the time of you damaging the first enemy, and if you roll within that 25%, then it basically increases the damage of each hop? I don't know. I think it's calculated on each hit, probably. I don't know. And certainly if you throw this into a group of like 3 elites, and especially if you have Venator's Knife with the mod that it comes back around for another go, that can be quite interesting, where you can essentially deal a lot of damage with that. Venator's Knife is not like ridiculous with the damage in the first place, but yeah, I think this is kind of cute. And then Meticulous Schemer, which is the capstone, says 200% of killing damage on enemies tagged with deception skills are divided amongst other tagged enemies. So I definitely want to test this though, because low-key I actually like Venator's Knife a lot. I like the interaction of it. I like putting mods onto it that make it be able to bounce more and to bounce back for 1 rotation and to actually be able to jump further. So this certainly just means that you can really make your Venator's Knife, you know, do some work here and actually deal a whole bunch of damage, potentially, if you know, you stack some more into that. We also don't know what new legendary sets are coming for the Trickster, so maybe there's a new legendary set that really leans into Venator's Knife. Maybe something that when you throw Venator's Knife, it splits into 2 different ones that travel along, whatever. We don't know what's going to happen, but this bottom one, that bottom capstone, seems like, as much as I enjoy Time Rift, seems like you can have some funny things happening with Venator's Knife, and of course that's going to be, you know, very cute. So that's it for the 2 trees. That's the Exploiter, of course, and I forget the name of the other one. It's the Exploiter and the Spectre. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of this. We've of course done the Devastator before. Next up for us will be the Technomancer, and we're slowly but surely making our way to my favorite class, which is the Pyro. And in a way, I'm keeping the best for last, at least when it comes to the way that I feel about it. But let me know how you feel about these builds. I know some of the people that I play with regularly are die-hard Trickster supporters. They love the class. I personally think Anomaly Trickster is a hell of a lot of fun to play, and I'm certainly interested in testing these changes that we see with these Pax Trees and how that's actually going to change, you know, how we build those and which skills we rather use instead of other ones, and whether Time Rift is still as good as it is, or, you know, is Venator's Knife, for instance, better now, or is Slow Trap the bomb? Who knows? But that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching these long ones. I hope that you guys enjoy going through these in depth like this. But like I said, let me know what you like about this and what you don't like about this in the comments. But as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. And it is just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, a great afternoon, and a super awesome evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.